moms are 2.5 times more likely to die during childbirth than their own mothers, and 500 times more likely to have a C-section. Now, do you think there is sort of maybe not causation, but a correlation between not having a village and those things happening?
Yes, 100%, absolutely. And the reason that I think that is because, they look at what are the reasons that mothers pass away during childbirth because it's a really tragic event, one that obviously nobody who works in the system or with women, like we all care, right? Like every doctor cares, every nurse cares, every midwife cares. However, the number one cause of maternal mortality in our country.
So, hey, welcome back to another episode of Coffee with Bearded Bad Dad. My guest today, Miss Suzzie Vehrs. How are you doing today, Susie?
I am good. I was so excited for this podcast. I could not sleep. So
Yeah,
I'm a
I'm
little bit
going
tired.
off.
It's early here.
Yeah, hey, it's early here too. I'm only going off of like 4 hours sleep myself. So it's, hey, we get into those patterns sometimes where we can't sleep and we're so excited about things. And you know what? Let's just have a conversation like we're old friends.
It's
Uh,
funny when
Go
it's
ahead.
not kids keeping me awake at night, but my own mind. But that is life sometimes.
Yeah. So when I was a young father, yeah, I didn't hardly go through, the sleeping issues and stuff like that. But with my last child, he's six, my youngest, he had so many sleeping issues that it was like I slept maybe 2 or 3 hours a day at the most, and it was awful sometimes. But that's the price of being a parent sometimes. So,
It is.
Susie, you're a doula, is that right?
I am, yes.
So
Birth and postpartum doula.
so for my audience, like the majority of my audience is male, as you could probably guess. So for my audience, what the hell is a doula?
Yeah, so a lot of people think that we are kind of like midwives, like we're that like natural person that comes to catch the baby. We're not. We are physical and emotional support through labor. So it means that like if you as a dad are the birth partner, we're there on your team. We're there to anticipate what the mom might need. We're there to pick her up in the hard moments. We're there to make sure you both are eating and sleeping and give good pep talks and give that counter pressure and make sure that she's being advocated for and protected, whether she's at home or the hospital or a birth center. We're typically like the first member of the team. We join you at your house, labor with you there, and then go with you and are there through the entire time at the hospital.
That's awesome. That's really admirable because one thing that my wife and I were missing when we were a young couple is a village. I mean, we had our
Mhm.
moms. My mom was, there, but she wasn't like there. And her mom was the same, and we didn't have many friends that had been through the parenting experience or the birthing experience. I had been through it before as a young father, when my wife and I were younger, but the thing I can say the most is there was no real emotional or mental support during the pregnancy itself. And then afterwards, it was just kind of like, oh, you're not pregnant anymore, so we're not going to pay attention to you. So it's a wonderful thing that you are doing what you're doing. Let me ask you, do you have kids of your own?
I do. I have a 7-year-old and 11-year-old.
So did you have a doula when you were during your birthing process?
Not with my first. I worked in finance with my first, and I had a friend who was a doula who I thought was weird. And in my cubicle thing, we kind of had like these tripod cubicles. And the guy that sat across from me, his wife was pregnant and they were doing a home birth and had a midwife and a doula coming to them, and I thought they were bonkers. Um, and then my birth was like very stressful and very like didn't go the way we wanted at all. And I kind of started thinking after that, like, like it just seemed like maybe I missed something in that experience or wished I had had more support. When I heard of the stories of other people having more support, I was like, that's interesting. So 4 years later, when I had my second baby, I did have a doula and I loved her so much. And I really appreciated her. And I was kind of inspired by her to switch into this career.
And that's awesome. You had mentioned you thought it was kind of weird. I was thinking the same thing. It's kind of weird to have somebody all up in your business like that you don't really know. But it is that something that you have to cope with your new clients, I guess is what you'd call them.
Yes and no. As a doula, I feel like a lot of what makes it so beneficial to have a doula is that you know your doula, you have a really good relationship. I try to know my clients inside and out. We've usually spent I don't know, 2, 3, 4 hours together before labor. And very like I do my all my appointments either. We do like the birth plan planning. Usually we go out for coffee and talk for hours about wishes, hopes, dreams, fears, all the little logistical things within the systems you're going through. And then the second one we do at home where it's like very practical, talking about like, well, let's try doing some counter pressure and talk about what that's going to feel like, and talk through what are some of the movements and positions and ways to cope with the actual pain of labor. So usually we know each other pretty well by the time labor starts, and it's not so clinical feeling. Usually we're friends by then.
That's so I'm just having I wonder if there's any correlation between not having a village and we had talked briefly message back and forth before we had come on to do the podcast, and moms are 2.5 times more likely to die during childbirth than their own mothers and 500 times more likely to have a C-section. Now, do you think there is sort of maybe not causation, but a correlation between not having a village and those things happening?
Yes, 100%, absolutely. And the reason that I think that is because, they look at what are the reasons that mothers pass away during childbirth because it's a really tragic event, one that obviously nobody who works in the system or with women, like we all care, right? Like every doctor cares, every nurse cares, every midwife cares. However, the number one cause of maternal mortality in our country is suicide. And so to me, that is not like, yes, all the other reasons are medical, and we can talk about those too, but the fact that the number one is suicide says that there's something happening in birth where women are isolated, where they're alone, they're scared, they're overwhelmed, and they're not getting support when they need it. Um, yeah, your
That's
village matters.
that's very interesting. I had no idea. I didn't even know that there was I assumed there was, some post what is that term that they use for a postnatal or
Postpartum depression?
there you go. There you go.
Yeah,
I don't know. For some reason during podcasting, you just lose thoughts randomly. So pardon me. I also have a touch of that ADHD as well.
I can
um
totally relate to that.
so I was also wondering what has changed, what else has changed over the last, couple decades that has gotten that trend so terrible. You had mentioned some other medical things. Before we get into that, I want to dive a little bit deeper into the suicide thing. I had no idea. That's wild. Why do you think that is? Other than a lack of village, do you? I just there's got to be something, you would think some kind of physical thing going on. So, that they used to tell us about ADHD and anxiety that was like a chemical imbalance. Now we know that's not true, but is there some kind of like body physiological response and hormones that contribute to that? Or is it just, do you think it's just a difficulty dealing with or coping with the stressors of childbirth itself?
Yeah. Well, I think that women now are a lot more alone in their preparation for birth. Um, there's a lot of birth trauma too. If you think about like people who go through their birth and have that experience of like, oh my God, what just happened, and feeling like overwhelmed. I guess I'll put it this way. Birth trauma is specifically like when you leave birth with symptoms like not being able to sleep, like when you experience trauma, think about
Right.
your other big life traumas, divorce of your parents, medical conditions, things like that. About 45% of women come through birth with like reportable trauma that needs to be healed. And about 30% of women come through with diagnosable PTSD symptoms, um, which is pretty serious, right? Like that's not a small thing to be coming through birth with. And I'm
Right.
not like anti the medical establishment at all. I think it is so incredibly important, but I don't think people realize that the medical system itself is overwhelmed. That
Yeah.
like you used to have your doctor that carried you through pregnancy. Now you have a group practice and you might see a different provider for every single one of your appointments. And you lack
Yeah.
that deep relationship. And the doctor that's at the hospital with you might have 8 different patients at the same time. And, they're watching your medical things, but they're not spending a lot of time with the women, which in the end kind of leads to we're very like reactive. We like wait for
Yeah.
problems and then respond to them instead of being proactive with nutrition, movement, mental support, um, things like that throughout the preparation and the birth. So it just happens that we have a lot more problems and difficulties and challenges as we go through labor as well.
Yeah, I just thinking back about my wife's pregnancies. Um, I wasn't really a very attentive husband during those times. And you said reactive and proactive. It just got me to I wasn't very proactive at all. I was very, very reactive, and I also worked on the road a lot during her first pregnancy, and so she really didn't have the emotional or physical support. Period, but it appeared like she was okay. Now, I say that, but looking back, just it occurred to me during this conversation, listening to you talk, that maybe those might have been some of the issues that we've been dealing with unknowingly over the last decade or so, since we've just kind of not understood that there was changes that happened during childbirth that we don't understand ourselves.
Yeah, yeah, I think that happens to most people because especially with your first, it's it's hard to know what even to prepare for or what to expect. I know a lot of my clients tell me things like, they're so excited to have their baby, but they're in Reddit or they're on YouTube and they're watching people's stories and they're seeing their friends, kind of struggle. And there's just this like, this tremendous amount of effort being channeled into the birth, but some of it is so like such anxious effort. It's not guided, it's not like grounding effort. So um I think like systematically, when you had like 1 hour prenatal appointments, which I had with my midwife, my second birth, right? Like I talked with my midwife. Every single visit wasn't 10 or 15 minutes, it was an hour long. And then I had my doula that I was also talking to. And like she talked me through so much of my own trauma. And so she gave me a place for it to be safe to talk about things that I had never really explored it, to really like rebuild like, okay, I actually lost trust in my body. I lost trust in this partnership and I lost trust in the systems around me. Like, how do I rebuild that? And I
Yeah.
think if you don't have somebody that understands, sometimes we can never even find the words or we don't even have the realization and we just have like an icky feeling that settles, like or a discomfort, and it's hard to know what that even means, what happened, is it mental, is it physiological? Yeah.
Well, I think my wife liked to put up a good front that she was really tougher than what she was. And I kind of looked at that as, man, she's really tough. And I kind of at the time for our first, it was more of I had to work. And I was on the road a lot. And so I was home on the weekends, and when I was home, I wasn't really probably as attentive as I should have been and not proactive. But at the same time, she didn't really know to ask for help or what to expect either. She read that book, What to Expect When Expecting.
Oh my
And
God, I hate that book.
I mean, it was helpful, but it
Yeah.
was largely bullshit. So it's like one of those things where you get into it and then you read that book, What to Expect When you're expecting, and then none of that happens, and then you're
Mhm.
just like, what the hell? So,
Yeah. Yeah.
but let
Yeah.
me tell you about her experience, okay, with
Oh, I
with
would love
with
to
her
hear her
childbirth.
experience.
So with the first, it was a very it was a very I don't want to say difficult because it was you talk to her and she doesn't have you know the worst memories of being pregnant or childbirth, and she had to be induced 2 weeks late, and so our first baby was massive. He was, I think he was like 9 pounds, so he was a big boy. And it was
Did she do it
I
vaginally or did she go back for surgery?
Yeah, so she did do it vaginally, and she was really tough, really, really tough. And I remember when we went in there, it was, scheduled, of course, just scheduled inducing.
Yeah.
We went in there and it was, October, so it was fall, and I smoked cigarettes, so I was in and out of the hospital room washing hands and stuff. I wanted to kind of be comfortable, so I was going to go home, take a shower, go to sleep, and come back the next day.
Mhm.
And she said no, and I was like, why? I don't understand. And so I spent the night being very uncomfortable in the fold out chair that they have for fathers, and that's I
It's
mean that's one.
terrible, right? They're
E-
not set up to make the dad comfortable, which makes it hard
Exactly.
to be a great support person when you're tired and hungry.
Exactly. And them walking in at 3 o'clock in the morning and my chair is falling apart and it's laying on the
Mhm.
floor and I'm all laying sideways and stuff and trying not to look like an asshole and try to be supportive. And I don't know what to do because she doesn't know what to tell me to do. And if it was a giant mess. But her mom showed up. Her mom was very neurotic and kind of just not very she's got some mental issues that makes her difficult to be around. She's not crazy or anything, but she's kind of close. And my mom was there sporadically, but she's not very involved in all that. And so really the only support that she had was me. And of course I was over medicated and nervous and didn't really know what to do because I didn't know what I didn't know, and then she didn't know what she didn't know, so she didn't know to ask me to do this or prepare in certain ways. Or, but basically, I stayed at the hospital because she wanted me to stay at the hospital. I was miserable. She never heard the end of it, and we were just there. But I mean, we made the best of it. So fast forward 10 years, and we have another and we go in to have our youngest, and she didn't have anybody there at all.
Oh,
I
wow.
was so I had kids at home that
Yeah.
I had to be with, and I was also very, very, very sick, with like flu-like symptoms almost, but without the vomiting and stuff. So I stayed at home to take care of the other kids, and
Mhm.
she went to the hospital. I dropped her off by
Oh my goodness.
herself, and then right before right before he came, we just live right down the street, like within 8 minutes of the hospital. So when everything was getting ready to happen, I had her calling me and nursing staff calling me, get here now. And so I was on my way out there. She gave birth. I stuck around for an hour or two, and then I came back home. And
Yeah.
because her mom, the almost crazy mom, was at the hospital watching our other two boys, and she was driving us nuts while she was there babysitting, and the boys were not comfortable, and very one was 10, and I think the other one, there's one was 10 and the other one 16, I think. I can't remember how old they were. But I remember her youngest, or her oldest at the time, was 10, and it was very, so nobody was comfortable. I was very sick, so I came back home, and a couple days later she called, okay, well, I'm ready to come home. And we went out and got her, and she came home, and we have this baby, and she was there for 6 weeks. And I did not make the process easy, because I was trying to prepare myself to be stay-at-home dad with a newborn baby. And she was going to go back to work after 6 weeks. So I was like, oh, you got this. For the next 6 weeks, I'm just going to take it all in and kind of hang out here. So I was less than supportive with the second one as well. And so, it's it's a tragedy of motherhood, really. But she never complains. It's just over time she's become grumpy, and so we kind of give her space. But that's been my wife's experience through childbirth, is she really didn't have anybody either, and it would have probably benefited her to have a doula, even if it does sound weird, right? But I'm sure this interaction right here, it just meeting and hanging out for a little while, would be a lot different if I was pregnant, and we were meeting, and I was like, hey, I need a support system. Are you going to be there for me? It'd be a lot different. And I think you're right. If more people had that support system, specifically, maybe not through the pregnancy months, but specifically at the end where the childbirth happened, because you're right, that's a lot of trauma to go through all at once. And then when it's over, they just hand you the baby and say, here, try not to kill it, and they send you home.
Isn't that the weirdest feeling when you're leaving the hospital and you're like, I just remember with my first, especially being like, wait a second, you're letting you think I know how to take care of this baby. And I was
Yes.
like, I guess I'm gonna figure it out. But all of a sudden,
I
like
think I remember
everything
saying
you
that.
think you've read in the books, it's like I just remember it flying out of my mind so fast and being like, how am I even going to do this? What am I supposed to do? I have no idea. And of course, you figure it out and you just do it. And, babies are smart. They just cry if they don't need anything. So you figure it out really quickly because that sounds like drives
Well,
you
I don't
crazy
know about
so
that.
fast.
My youngest, he has autism, and we didn't know. Like,
Oh my
how do you
goodness.
know?
Yeah.
He really didn't start exhibiting signs until is 18 months or so, and then we were like, maybe we ought to get him tested. But so he had a lot of issues sleeping, and of course when you put
Was
him
he
down.
colicky and stuff right from the beginning too?
Yeah, yeah, and
Yeah.
he wasn't really colicky. You could tell it wasn't a painful cry. It was just
Yeah.
it was just an I don't know what's wrong cry. And I was very empathetic to that cry, because I was diagnosed with autism myself earlier this year. So I didn't know I had autism until I was 40. And so as I'm going through all this, was very difficult for me because like being a stay-at-home dad, I didn't have any support either. It was
Right.
like, and I, of course, I wasn't a new father. I had a 10-year-old boy at that time, and also I had other children. So I have four children total, and he was my youngest. So I had plenty of parenting experience, but I'd never been through anything like that before. And I would almost say, um, I would almost say that I had a very I still tell people that I had PTSD from it, and I don't like when my kids ask me to watch my grandkids. It's like, no, I'm good. You bring them to me when they're out of diapers and they can walk around and do things for themselves. I'll watch them then, but I don't want to deal with babies because I had a very traumatic experience with the last one.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
It's
hard when you
weird.
have those like, because, I'm around a lot of babies, and there are babies that are very high needs compared to their peers. And the reality is, you have to meet them with compassion. And
Yeah.
I don't know about you, but like sometimes those babies, like you're just walking and bouncing and you're doing all the things, and it's like on this repeat cycle, and you just have to
And
find a way to keep going, and it's hard. It's very
And on
hard.
top of that, not having any sleep, right? And
Yeah.
so when other people were around, I wanted to check out and just go away. And then I couldn't do that because I was on demand all the time. And my wife, she was not only was she working full time, but she was going to school full time as well. And it was like regardless of how I felt during that time, she had to go, and it was I now know how she felt during when I was doing that to her. It wasn't a choice thing. I didn't choose it and she didn't choose, but it was like uh, both of us experienced that, not having the other during that time. It's a very weird experience to tell people about as well, because it's like I don't want to be perceived as like a pussy, right? I'm a man, and I'm tough and I can handle everything. But boy, it was really, really rough on me. And I still talk about it with my wife today. I'm like, listen, dealing with this one was very hard on me, and I was not prepared for that. And I feel like everybody just kind of left me to my own devices and didn't even care about the kid at that point. Like at that point, I almost felt like I could have been I wasn't dangerous. I wasn't going to do anything, but the possibility was there. And so I felt like people not only were ignoring the fact that I needed help, but they were also leaving people in potentially dangerous situations unknowingly, or because they were just reactive and not proactive. It appeared like they didn't care.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really interesting. Where I work here in Seattle, we have like a very diverse population. And so a lot of my clients come from other countries. And one thing that's really normal in other countries is that grandparents are enormously helpful. And I would say across the board, most of the American families I work with, even if you have like grandparents close, they are not helpful. It's not they don't see it as their duty or their job to cook, to
Yeah.
clean, to be respectful, to like secretly take everything off the plate other than feeding the baby.
Yeah.
Like there's this very unique distinction between cultures of like in a lot of other cultures, it's like taking care of the baby is enough work, and you don't really do additional work if you're the one taking
Yeah.
care of the baby. Whereas here, we expect people to like be the household manager and to take care of the older kids and to take care of the baby and to have a social life and to go to do all these other, be active in the like the expectations are just really high, and where we expect stay-at-home moms, stay-at-home dads, working moms, working dads, everyone to bounce back to is just so
Well, it
unrealistic.
hasn't always been like that here in America. And I tell you, it's very chauvinistic to kind of feel this way, but it happened when moms were taken out of the home.
Oh, I would love to hear your perspective about that.
So yeah, so I during World War One and World War Two, before that, moms were at home. Moms did. It's arguable that moms may have been tougher and did more work than men back then because not only did they take care of the kids, but they take care of everything with the house too, and that
Mhm.
includes animals and whatever farming or growing that they did. Chores were very laborious because they didn't have machines back then, and they didn't have a washer, a dryer, a dishwasher to do those things, and moms had to do all those things. So that was mom's job from the time she got up to the time went to bed was taking care of everything.
Mhm.
But she was there. And dad was, working the fields or going to work and doing, making the money, keeping the house going from a financial standpoint. And then the wars happened and, all the men went to war and that's what they did. And a lot of them didn't come back. So mom had to then provide financial, you know, and economic sustenance for the home as well. And specifically, right before World War II and right after, all the women left home and they
Mhm.
went to work. It wasn't just to make up for, the men being gone during war. It was economic. It was very
Right.
financially, incentivized. And then women's suffrage came and
Mhm.
the feminists and this, that, and the other thing. And if you ask me, feminists have it backwards. They should be fighting to not go to work. They should be fighting to stay home and take care of their kids and take care of their families and go back to the way things used to be. But that's my perspective. It's kind of chauvinistic, but it's very it's centered from a lot of experience and observation, economic observation, parenting observations,
Mhm.
observing, trying to figure out what the hell is wrong with these kids, right? I mean, and we
Yeah.
all, as older generations, we all say that about the younger generations. I believe personally that like Gen Z and Gen Alpha are going to change the world, right? I personally
Mhm.
believe that, but not everybody does. And so we're always talking crap on the generations behind, coming up ahead of us. And I think it legitimately has a lot to do with moms not being in the homes,
Oh,
and it's a double dose for little boys because not only are moms not in the home taking care of the kids, but look at our teachers. All our most of our teachers are female, so our boys are not getting that male interaction as well
same with
either.
like at outdoor times at school. I saw an
Yeah.
article the other day that like there are tens of thousands of schools that have gotten rid of recess altogether. I'm like,
Wild.
how like kids are supposed to be playing.
Yeah.
I
Yeah. I mean, you should
very
see
mixed
the
emotions about like the staying at home because I was a stay-at-home mom for years and it did not work well for me. But oh, like I do wonder, like, um,
I've been a stay-at-home
had I
dad
been like
for
financially supported and that really, or had equal rights in that dynamic,
yeah.
would it, could it have been a better situation? Because it was really hard when I had to provide financially and parent. Like my kids, they got the short end of the stick in those years before I kind of found a new partner to really
Yeah,
pursue.
like my kids right now are getting the raw deal too, and my wife, my poor wife, she's got that mom guilt, and being a stay-at-home, I've been a stay-at-home dad for 11 years, and how I got started was I had gotten fired from a job and just couldn't find another one, and we had made the decision that my wife was like, "Hey, I want to go back to school," and I was like, "Well." I kind of want to stay home. So
Mhm.
she's like, so it just kind of worked naturally. I'm not educated or formally educated past high school, so I really had a kind of a ceiling on how much I could earn. So it was more, it was also kind of a financial decision as well, as you know, she had better earning potential back then than I did, and I have better earning potential now than she does. But it's the lack of experience, and if I was to go work in a factory today, I could make more than her within, a year or two. But then
Really?
my body starts failing me, and it
Hmm.
wasn't like that, 20, 25 years ago. If I was working in a factory, I would make a lot less than she did. And so it was, and of course, when I was working, I always, if you add in all the hours that I was working, I brought home more, but hourly I made less. And it just started taking a toll on my body. And now, I mean, if I absolutely had to, I would go out and get a physical labor job, and I would end up making more money than she did simply for the amount of hours I would have to work in comparison. And but the factories these days pay pretty good. So the factories
So
near my
interesting
house,
how the value proposition, like which jobs pay well, has changed so much over
yeah.
the past couple decades.
I think I think it was always supposed to be that way. I think people in factories should be making a lot more than
They
people sitting in an
absolutely should.
office.
They should.
And the biggest reason why is because they produce things, and people in the office don't really produce anything. And the value is kind of offset. Labor is worth a lot more than people think it is. And I've always said that my entire life. Like when I was a young guy, um, I used to tell people, well, I won't get out of bed for less than $12 an hour. And what that meant was I am valuable. My time is valuable and my labor is valuable. I'm not going to trade you my labor or my time for anything less than $12 an hour. And now that was at that time. I couldn't, I don't know, I really don't know anybody that can live off $12 an hour, honestly, but um, it, it, it was very tough to make that decision as a man to stay home and not be the provider, but I provided in other ways. And
Mhm.
that's how people got, I still have trouble dealing with it sometimes, because like we sometimes we live paycheck to paycheck, and it just sucks, man. It really sucks. And I feel bad because I know that I could go out and produce, I know I could produce value. I know I have value, and I could produce financial assistance to my home. And it just sucks sometimes to not really realistically be able to do that, because I don't have 8 hours per day realistically to donate to a job, because
Mhm.
my youngest son, somebody has to take care of him. He's
Yeah.
6 and he has autism, and um he's
How
very, very
how does
brilliant.
his autism present? Does he need like constant care or is he pretty high functioning? Is
He's
this
pretty very,
okay to
very
ask?
high functioning. You wouldn't, if you were just talking to him, you wouldn't know unless you knew autism signs. And it's kind of like
Yeah.
talking to me. People don't when I tell people I have autism, if they're not familiar with autism, they're like, "What? You really? You have autism?"
Yeah.
But if they're familiar with autism, it's pretty obvious. And that's kind of the way it is with him. He doesn't wear his diagnosis on his sleeve. We don't treat him any different than the others. He's very verbal, and he's very rambunctious. He's an average 6-year-old in that aspect. He's just a little bit cognitively behind, and his communication is not like everyone else's. But I believe behind the the communication issues, we could have a little genius on our hands,
Hmm.
because he is very, very brilliant, and he has a very high emotional intelligence, and he has that empathy that is very, it's almost like a harmful empathy, if you will. He empathizes so hard it hurts himself. So, but
Wow.
No, he doesn't wear his diagnosis on his sleeve, and but he does require significant um not help, but
Time.
supervision. And it does take a lot of time. We are busy from the time we wake up till the time we go to bed. Now, my wife, she works two jobs. She works a day job in an office, and then she also at night we clean some clinics at night, and she goes and or I go and I get the trash from these clinics, and then she goes and cleans them. So it's a group effort, but I she does the majority of the work. So she has two jobs, and we started that gig as like a it started as just like bonus money, right? As a
Mhm.
favor to a friend. Uh, we started this gig, and because they needed help, and we were like, hey, money, they
Yeah, I
paid
get
really
it.
good at that time, but then the economy went sideways, and it ended up we needed it now. So
Yeah.
it's we're very, 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 very busy, and the kids ultimately suffer from that. And not only is my wife gone, she has work and everything, but when we're all here, we just sometimes don't have the mental capacity to hang out with each other. And part of that is because we have a really small house for like in American standards, we have less than 1,000 square feet here. And w- we just we don't have that mental bandwidth to be patient with each other all the time, and to really acknowledge that we're all in this together kind of thing. We're all overstimulated, really, pretty much. That's what it
Yeah.
is. We're all overstimulated.
Yeah. Well, it's hard, like the fundamental needs that we have as humans for sleep and rest and recovery. I feel like those are getting more and more out of out of reach to just eat well, sleep well, the basics of taking care of yourself, the things that have to be taken care of before you can have that like I don't know if you've ever heard of like Maslow's triangle. It's like the layers of things you need for like self-actualization or like
Right.
to like be in flow state. And I think that for most of us, no, we're like in survival mode. We're not in like,
I- And I really think that
yeah,
survival mode is my wife's flow state.
yeah.
And yeah, it's you'd be surprised how much you miss out on because of it. You get into this state of mind where you're just floating along, and going through the motions. And you ever seen that movie Click with Adam Sandler?
Ooh, I don't think I have seen that one.
So it's about a dad, and he essentially finds the universal remote to life, and he's able to fast forward through life, and then all of a sudden the remote starts doing it by itself, and because it learns his preferences, and all of a sudden he wakes up and he's really old and he's missed out on life. That's what it's kind of like being, a mom and a dad in today's society, is you miss out on a lot of shit because you're preoccupied trying to live.
Yeah.
And I don't think there's any easy solution to that other than people don't need as much shit as they think they do. And and like we do need, as a society, we need to go backwards. We need to get back to what's important. And I'm not talking about like socialism or anything like that. I know that's probably pretty big where you live in Seattle, but
Oh,
I'm not
sure. Yeah,
I'm,
we're very liberal here, but
yeah. And so I live in Missouri near Kansas City. We're just the opposite. We're very conservative here. So I'm not really talking about like socialism or anything like that. But I'm just talking about like people need to understand, like we live in 1,000 square foot house, and we make it work for us. And I'm not saying it's for everybody, but we don't need a giant McMansion.
yeah.
And I haven't, to be honest with you, I haven't bought a car in, gosh, it's been a long time. It's been so long since I've actually bought my own vehicle. It's been a while. So the last three cars that we've had were gifts. They were given to us.
That's
And
so cool.
now we're very, very, very lucky to have that. But at the same time, it's also taught me that I don't need the best, newest vehicle, to be awesome. I just need a car, right? And
Yeah.
and a lot of people today, a lot of our youngsters specifically are so caught up in consumerism that we all think we need the best and the newest, shiniest thing, or we're not going to survive. And I've seen this. People say, like rich people, they use that. They say, well, if you quit eating your avocado toast and drinking your Starbucks, you'll be able to buy a home. And I
I
think
don't think
that's hype.
so.
Yeah, I think
Sure.
that's
Yeah.
hyperbole. I think that's hyperbole, but I think it speaks to something else, that you don't have to start out with the best of the best of the best right out the gate.
Mhm.
Like, and I acknowledge, just because I suffered, that doesn't mean the future generations need to suffer too. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, when I moved out on my own, I didn't have cable. I didn't have a phone. I didn't have any of those things that younger generations say they have to have to move
Mhm.
out on their own. I was eating ramen noodles during the lean months. There
Too.
was
That's
a
how I got through
struggle there.
college. Yeah.
Yeah, there was a struggle there, and a lot of young kids these days see it as a rite of passage, that they don't have to deal with those things. That they start
Hmm.
out, they have a cell phone, and it's $200 a month, and they have this cell phone payment, and they have car payments, and they have the insurance, and they have this, and they have that, and I'm like, I had to ride the bus, folks. Like, it's really not that bad. if
Right.
if the in the younger generations, they say, okay, well, I don't have the $100 for this, I do have this $20, so let me take that $20 and go spend it on something that I don't need, and to make me feel better, that because I don't have the $100, and I'm going to blame everybody else for my issues. And in America, it, like, I see so many people complaining because they can't afford to live in places like Seattle.
Yeah.
Move.
It's
Move.
really hard to make it here without like tech jobs.
Right,
But
but like, how much? Like, I tell
you,
you what, like, my house payment is like $1,200 a month, and a lot of people are paying like three times that for rent in places like Seattle. But
yeah.
where I live, rent that high is, it's unimaginable. We couldn't imagine a $3,000 rent payment here. Like,
And it's
that's
not like the houses are better. Our houses are small and
right.
old. And
Right.
I mean, you
But
can,
there's no
sure, there are
guarantee for
exceptions,
anyone.
but
Just because
right.
you grew up in a place, that doesn't mean you get to stay there. If you can't afford to stay there, go somewhere where you can afford to move up to where you want to be. And I
Hmm.
think I think a lot of the older generations kind of had to do those things.
Yeah.
And they took it in stride, and they didn't call it suffering, they called it living. And that's
Hmm.
kind of where I'm at with the whole thing. I see my oldest boy, he struggles, financially, but he's got an apartment, he's got a car, and they've got a baby. They're doing pretty
That
good
sounds
as
like they're
far.
like solidly on their feet. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, they're doing pretty decent, for their younger 20s. Now, they one of them wants to go out and buy a new car and have payments. When they own their car now, they don't have any payments. Yes, it was given to them. Yes, it could shit and take a shit and not work anymore tomorrow, but right now it runs. They don't need a brand new car. They don't need payments. And explaining that to them is very difficult. Explaining, like, getting them to understand. I think they do get it. I think they do understand, but they got to experience the hardships and everything on their own. But
Yeah.
just trying to explain to them that they don't need the brand new vehicle. It's like, well, we need it to run, and we need it dependable, and this, that, and the other thing. And I'm like, I live less than 10 minutes from your house. If you
Hmm.
need a ride to work and your car won't start, call me, and I can come get you and I can take you to work, or I can figure out how to get you there if I can't get you there. And the
What a
it
gift to have that kind of support around the corner.
yes, exactly. And a lot of younger kids don't even have that. But I'm just speaking in generalities
Yeah.
here. I think the younger generation doesn't know that everybody suffers at that point in their life. And
Mhm.
I think they find it impossible to get out of this hole that we're in financially because, it is so difficult
The
to live there.
overconsumption.
And well, it's not the high rent is an issue. Like it
Yes, it
really
is.
is, but you can't put restrictions on it. Otherwise, the people that own the buildings will move because they have the money to move. They have the money to leave. So then you're just stuck there holding the bag for a really expensive building that you don't know what to do with. The rent prices are out of control, but a lot of it's just government mismanagement, to be honest with you. Inflation and just poor decisions and funding this and funding that. And the government's really broke right now. And that's one of the arguments against socialism is like the government doesn't have money to right now. They're broke right now, and you want them to
Mhm.
fund more. I don't understand. You want them to, where's this money going to come from? We're 30 some trillion dollars in debt right now. You want to go 40 some thousand, 40 some trillion dollars in debt? Like
Right.
where's the off ramp? How are we going to get better as a nation? And the only way we're going to get better is to start making stuff again.
Yeah, I fully agree with that. I think it's really interesting. When I look at my family history, all four of my grandparents grew up on farms,
Yeah.
different types of farms. Like my grandpa came from a dude ranch, my grandma, um, I guess the rest of it more traditional, like growing their own food. Like they had chickens, and my mom can tell stories about running around and catching the chicken and then pulling the feathers off of them and things like that. And they all kind of moved into like suburban life. But I think it's really interesting. Like I was listening to a podcast from the guy that made the Ring camera
Yeah.
and then sold it to Amazon. And then what he did was he moved back to farm life to raise his
Yeah.
kids literally on a farm. And it's so interesting that like there was so much I think excitement in moving out of farm life into suburbia, like for somehow this was way better. But
Yeah.
now it's like the opposite way. Like the people who can are like trying to move back into like,
Yeah.
like you have the whole trad wife movement, you have this whole movement of people trying to go back to simpler times and putting so much like, wait, there's a joy here, there's space here, there's like it feels good when you like cook,
Isn't isn't
and
that
it's such an
interesting?
interesting circle from someone that's like in the middle of a city where everyone's like
Yeah.
go, 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 go. I like really appreciate the value of that comes with that like quieter life where you don't have to be like obviously it's a tremendous amount of work, but it's a different type of
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And so like it is very, very interesting like how that happens. And they call that escape velocity. And that's
Oh, I
what
didn't know that had a name.
yeah. Yeah. So the rich people, they get to rich enough to where they can escape and go out and live out in the boonies away from everybody.
Hmm.
It is very interesting. That's kind of what we're doing now as a family is we've gone backwards. Like I embrace tech. I really do. I love tech. I'm on a computer right here that, costs more than my last car, ironically. um, it's I like tech. It makes my life easier. As a matter of fact, something you might appreciate living in Seattle is I'm growing my own cannabis right here
Oh,
in
that's
in
cool.
this room, and it's silent, right?
Hmm.
And you can't hear it, I can't hear it, but I know it's there, and I'm learning how to cultivate cannabis, and I'm doing like bake our own bread, and we're trying to teach our kids how to do those things. Um, trying to, because simpler times were better. It's not that we might think they were better, that slower, more digestible. We weren't all up on our phones all the time. It wasn't go, 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 go all the time. You had time to stop and breathe and take it in. And I think a lot of people who are fortunate enough to be able to slow down just a little bit to look around and be like, this isn't what I want. I don't want to be constantly bombarded with ads all day long. I don't want to be constantly having to, decide which bill I'm going to pay, or I shouldn't have to decide whether I'm going to eat this month or I'm going to pay my rent. Those things
Right.
shouldn't be happening. But it goes along with like I was saying, the new generations feel like they have to have those things. And it's because of lies that were sold us by not only, companies and corporations, but also our government.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
Our
Well, and
government
it's
makes
not
us feel
just
like
like
we
the
have to have those things.
yeah. And it's not just like like a cell phone has a logical, like who has a house phone anymore? You kind of do need a way to contact the rest of the world. But like, do you need a $2,000 stroller in your house?
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Like I
Well,
think
you
we
don't
take
even need people. That's the thing, though. People don't need a contact to the rest of the world, right? Like
that's true.
you live in Seattle, so you can walk outside and contact people. You don't have to have a phone. And like that's kind of goes along with what I'm saying is like we feel like we have to have a phone all the time.
Mhm.
I feel like I went I forgot my phone at home yesterday actually when I went somewhere, or was it yesterday? It was the day before, something like that. Anyway, I left my phone at home and I didn't have it, and I was like, well, what if I get into an accident on the way home? That was my first thought. And 30 years ago, it would have been like, okay, you got into an
Yeah.
accident on your way home. If
Yeah.
it is what it is, like that's how we dealt with things. And like, but now that first thought, and I acknowledged it as I was having that thought, well, that was stupid. 40 years ago, people didn't have cell phones, you know, and it really, I was trying to explain to my son, my oldest son, he has Life 360 on his phone. He and his significant other track each other.
Oh, wow.
Why?
Yeah.
And I'm like, why? Oh, just in case, like just in case she needs. I'm like, okay, son, but what if you go outside tomorrow and you walk out your front door and you get hit by a bus? And he's like, then I'll get hit by what is your girlfriend going to do to help you? What is Life 360 going to do for you if you get hit by a bus? Well, nothing. And I'm like, exactly, exactly. You two don't need to know where each other is all the time. That you just don't need that. And explaining that to people, like my wife has it for her mother, because her mom's kind of older and she's getting to the point where you know, she might. Okay, so she's a winter Texan. Last year, she went to Texas and somehow got into Mexico, and so it's a
Okay.
perfectly logical reason to have Life 360 on her phone. But my wife has it on her phone for her mother. But she doesn't have, I don't have Life 360. There's no reason to track me, or if I get into an accident, on the way home, what's she going to do to help?
I
You
had
know,
literally never heard of this app before. This is so cool.
yeah, it's
The
a
funny thing
tracking.
is, I
So
might do the opposite thing though and go download it.
yeah,
I'm
yeah,
like,
it's
this is
weird.
cool. It's a
It,
weird, modern life is weird that way.
but Life 360 it's not just a tracking app, right? It also It also alerts police when you like if you want it to. If you get into an accident, it'll alert police, and like if you're there's emergency contacts that it'll contact automatically, and all this, that, and the other thing too. So it's not just a tracking app. I wanted to put
Does
that
it
out there.
ever like accidentally contact the police or accidentally
A-
contact
Apple
the,
does.
yeah.
So Apple has 911 assist, and it
Mhm.
accidentally calls police sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah, we have like a weird security system in our house. And when
Me
fire
too.
alarms go off, it automatically calls the fire department for us, which
Yep.
I did not know when we moved into this house. Like like one day I burned I was like cooking bacon in our air fryer, and I had gone downstairs to get the kids up and start getting them ready for school. So I wasn't there when it started like smoking. I'm downstairs, I'm not far. Anyways, the fire alarm went off. Obviously, it scared the kids. I think Hazel was 5 or 6, so I'm like, she's panicking. I'm panicking, I run upstairs,
Have
take
all the
care of it.
noises
All
and
the noise, the fire alarm goes off, it stops going off. 10 minutes later, we get a knock on the door. Literally, the fire department was at our house and they were like, "Are you okay, ma'am?" And I was like, "Wait, why are you here?" And so I found out that they will like come once for free, like you can make that mistake once. But then it happened again. And so I was like, I wasn't the one that like set it off this time, but I was downstairs. So I ran up the stairs to like turn it off, literally sprinted. Also, did not know it has like a panic setting. So I
yes.
guess when I turned it off, I didn't turn off the panic part of it. And so again, like 20 minutes later, this time it's the police, and my partner answers the door and he's like, "Hello, like what are welcome to our house. What do you need?" And they're like, "Is everyone okay?" And he's like, "Yeah, of course." And I was down putting the kids to bed and they were like, "Who else is in your house?" And he was like, "Well, my partner and my kids." And he was like, "Are they okay?" And he was like, "Yeah, of course." And they were like, "We can't go until we see them." It was like the weirdest, like craziest thing.
Yeah.
Like I had to go up and talk to them and say like I was okay. Like, no, I'm not being like held hostage in my own house or anything like that.
Right, right.
But
And that's what the technology is good
yeah,
for. I mean, honestly, I'm one of my fears is my house burning down with or without me in it. That's one of my
either
fears.
way, that would be terrible. Yeah.
Yes, yes. And
Worse
so
if you were in it, but very bad either way.
right. So I've always had renter's insurance for that reason. Like when I was renting, and now that I'm a homeowner, we have a homeowner's insurance, and uh, the house payment is the most important one, right? But
Hmm.
next to the house payment is the insurance payment. Those are the two most important payments that I have in my life. And like, my electricity can get shut off. I'll still have a place to live.
Right.
That's the
Yeah.
thinking there. But yeah, that's what tech is good for, right? Is
Yeah.
things like that, and we have a similar system like ours. We don't have the smoke alarms and the fire detectors that are hooked to our alarm, but
Hmm.
it is capable of that if we had the sensors. But we do have like the panic alarm, but ours is silent. Our panic alarm is silent, so when you hit it, you don't even know, and then you get a knock on
Yeah,
the
that's
door or a phone
exactly
call.
what happened. Well, because it got triggered when our fire alarm went off. And then I think when
Yeah,
like it's kind of like in the closet, hidden behind like a shelf that's full of stuff. So you have to like shove all this stuff away and then put in the code. And somewhere in doing that, the panic button got pushed. So
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, it
That's
was wild.
comical. So I've my son, my youngest son, when he was, gosh, he was 3 or 4. He decided he was going to get in the washing machine and
Oh
and
my
hide
goodness.
and then he's just hiding in there. And he I was looking all over for him, and one thing, like, I always lock the door when I come inside, and that way I know if the deadbolt is locked, everybody's still inside. If the deadbolt's unlocked, I know that he has gone outside.
Hmm.
So it's kind of one of those like safety seal type things. If I know if it's still locked, I know he's in the house. If it's unlocked, he's probably outside is what I'm thinking. And my older son had walked in the door and left the door unlocked. And I looked over, I was looking for my youngest son. I looked over and the door's unlocked. So instantly I thought that he had went outside. And because he
Yeah.
has autism, I started freaking out. And I was like, oh my God, he's gone. And so I started looking all over for him. I started going outside, hollering around for him. I intentionally set the alarm off so that the cops would come. And like, or no, I called my wife and had her call the cops while I'm looking around for the kid. And I was walking through the house hollering his name, going to the backyard. And I heard him. I could hear him. I could hear him. And then I looked in the washer and he's there in the washer. And I was like, oh my
Wow.
goodness. Oh my goodness. And it was such a relief. But the cops
Yeah.
were on their way. And I told my wife, I was like, just keep them coming because they need to
Yeah.
meet him. And then when the police got there, I was like, "Hey, if you wouldn't mind, we plan on living here for a long time, but the youngest here, he has autism. Could you snap a picture of him so that you know what he looks like?" And our local police department has a program where that if there's special needs or deaf people or elderly in the area that they write it down, and there's some kind of system where it alerts them if there's a call nearby or a call from the house that this person has autism or this person has hearing difficulties or whatever. But there's some kind of system that they have that they can put that in there, and so we got ourselves added in there. But
That is so cool to just know you have that extra layer of protection, of eyes, of community.
well, I mean, we live in a city of like less than 100,000 people as well. So
Right.
it's like it was one of those things where I knew like there is, it feels like there's a lot more people that live here than there really is. At the same time, it has that small town feel. Everybody knows everybody, and it's a real small big city. So it was one of those things where I would feel comfortable knowing that the police had a picture of my kid. It's not like that everywhere. I don't know what Seattle PD's like, but sometimes it's not. Sometimes you don't want the police those interactions with the police department, but our police department is like a small community police department, very helpful, very caring, very loving, and very just I could say they're proactive for a city of their size. They're pretty proactive on things, and I don't know when that they implemented that program, but it was a really cool thing that they had alerted me of that day. And so his pictures in there, and whenever we want to update it, we can update it because, of course, this happened a couple years ago. But we
Mhm.
always have current pictures of all our kids. So that's one of the things I've always been paranoid about. Like
Yeah.
we like to travel. Another thing I've like, you ever heard of like younger kids getting IDs, like physical, like driver's license type IDs?
Oh, no, we don't have those.
Yeah, you do
That's
actually.
cool. Oh,
You
I
do.
mean, oh,
Yeah, it's a government issued ID. All you have to do is go to the state government and say, "Hey, for my kid, I wanted to get him a non-driver's license or non-driver's ID," and
oh,
you can
that's
do
so
that at any
cool.
age. Yeah, yeah.
That's
So
really cool.
starting at probably 12, 13, when my kids are old enough to do things on their own, I get them identification, like state ID, in
Hmm.
case, interactions with the police or, God
Yeah.
forbid something happens and somebody needs to be notified, they'll have that state issued ID that says who they are. And as a matter of fact, my 16-year-old, he doesn't have a driver's license, but he's had his since he was like 14, and it's a real ID. Like he can get on a plane with it and all
That's
that
so
good stuff. So
cool.
he doesn't have to have a passport or anything like that here in the continental US.
You're adding things to my to-do list. Now I need to go get IDs for my kids. I guess
Oh,
they do
it's fair.
passports because we did travel once out of country.
Yeah, passports
But
are
that's the
awesome.
only,
Passports are the ultimate thing, the ultimate
they're like
identifier.
bulky. You don't want to like, well, plus you would never like leave them with your kids. Like, I wouldn't trust my 11-year-old to walk around with her passport at the end of the
Exactly.
day. But a
Exactly.
license, like, yeah, she has like a wallet for when she like has like her school money and things like that. So,
Yeah, in most jurisdictions, they took the social security number off of your ID. Years ago, here in the state of Missouri, your driver's license number was your social security number,
oh,
and they stopped doing that now. And so your driver's license now isn't doesn't have your social security number on it. So if you lose it, the only thing you're really losing is your face with your address on it. That's pretty much it.
so you're not
Um,
worried about like somebody, opening a bank account or doing
right,
something like that
right.
in your name.
Exactly. Exactly. I
Cool.
mean, I'm sure you could. I'm sure that there's crooked things out there, but that's why, like at the bank, you're required to give up not only your ID, but you're also required to give up a second form of government identification, which is usually your social security card or your birth certificate.
Mhm.
And or you have to have the three of them in combination, your ID, your birth certificate, and your social security card to open up a bank account. And that's what I had to have when I was opening up my bank account was my ID, my state issue ID, and a social security card. But I believe it was there was a list of acceptable documents. I believe I if I remember correctly, I'm gonna knock on wood because I don't know, but um it's one of those things. I just get paranoid because we were traveling out of state is what we were doing with the like when my kids were real little we wanted to go to Disney World, and that's when I got the identification for my oldest son was because like we were traveling, and of course he had already come in contact with law enforcement at that age, and I just wanted him to be able to be identified if
Mhm.
like let's just say he comes in contact with law enforcement and they want to give him a hard time or he's given them a hard time and they ask, like he can whip that ID out and be like, I hear it, look, I'm a kid. And
Yeah.
and or if he got lost in Florida, he'd be
Mhm.
able to say,
This
here's
is who
my
I am.
ID. And
Yeah.
then yeah, exactly. And so I'm paranoid about situations like that. I'm paranoid about like um my youngest, I get paranoid about him getting lost. And so I wanted to
Mhm.
put him a tracker on him when he was younger. But thankfully I grew out of that idea and we deal with it in different ways. And we just teach him about safety and teach him about like, hey, we don't run away and things like that. And hope for the best.
Yeah. Yeah. It is. I feel like there's a lot of things that we're figuring out as the world changes. It's like we just, that's the best way to do it. Do your best and then hope for the best. And it does seem to work out.
It really does. It really does. And here's another thing. A lot of parents put a lot of pressure on themselves because they've planned things out. And I'll give you a specific example. My daughter had this vision of what being a parent was going to be like and how she was going to raise her kids and how everything was going to work out. And I told her, I said, you might want to tamp down your expectations a little bit. She's like, why? And I'm like, because the only thing that's for sure is that nothing's for sure. You're gonna get this plan in your head, and then when it comes down to it, nothing is gonna go to plan, and you're gonna blame yourself. And that's not wise to do because it's not your fault. Shit happens. And
Mhm.
now that she's had my grandson for over a year now, almost two, she's come to realize like yeah, some things you just can't plan out because it doesn't work out the way you want it to. And I'm like, instead of
Yeah.
being disappointed, just roll with it because we're on this roller coaster together and every day's a learning experience. Just learn from it and you'll be okay.
I remember when I had my second child thinking like, it's my first. daughter was a little bit more like high needs of a baby. And so I remember when I had my second feeling like, I was maybe like very like, what's the opposite of humble? Like very like overconfident in myself. Like, oh my God, I know how to do all of this now. Like I was just so
That's how
felt
I was with the
so
last
ready.
one.
And then Hazel got here, and she was an easier child than my first, but she was polar opposite. Like when Zoe just like would not sleep unless she's being held, Hazel I could swaddle and stick down. And like their personalities were so different. I was like, oh, like the parenting books worked for one kid, but not the other. And it was
Right.
interesting to realize like it wasn't like you have to change how you parent your kid based on who your kid is. And I
Yeah.
think a lot of parents kind of get through that cycle where they're like, I'm doing the things that I was told worked, but if it's the wrong structure or resource or whatever for your kid, it's not going to work, you know?
Yes.
It's not about
Yes.
you. It's just about like every kid is so unique.
Yeah, I take an individual approach to raising kids, but keep in mind that like as different as they are the same. And I like
Yeah.
I have to treat them the same, yet treat them as individuals. It's a very fine line that you have to walk because what works for one won't work for the other, and what doesn't work for this one might work for this one. But at the same time, you have to acknowledge that like if you have rules for this one, you have to have rules for this one. You have to be consistent. You have to, not show favorites, and you have to at the right times you have to show the favorites, and it's a
Yeah.
fine line. It's like a dance, right? I mean, it really is like one of the greatest experiences of my life is being a dad, and I was born to be a dad, but at the same time it's one of the most aggravating experiences ever
Yeah.
because as different as they are the same. And it's a very weird thing to say, and it's very weird to feel at the same time because like I'm having the same issues with my older two boys. I had the same issues with the middle boy as I did with the older boy, but handling those issues is two different. I have to handle them two different ways
Hmm.
because they are two different children. And it's it's like with one of them I could put on the stone face and be an asshole and scream and just be a big old gorilla and boss him around and everything, and he was okay with that. He could handle it, and he did well with it. The other one, you can't do that. You gotta, he just shuts down and stops listening, and it just becomes a horrendous cycle of aggravation. So you just have to speak calmly to him, like he's a deer. He's kind of skittish, like a deer, and you gotta,
So cute.
yeah, you gotta walk him through it. And what's cute about it is that he's 6'2", and so that's so he's taller than I am. He's a big
Mhm.
giant of a kid. And so and the one who could handle, the roughness, he's like 5'9", so I'm bigger than he is, and it's a very it's very strange to kind of think about it now, but yeah, the size difference is kind of funny. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it's very cute. Um, it's funny. I feel like I could talk all day about the differences between the kids and yeah, my daughters collapse if I yell. They turn into like like you can almost see their spirit leaving their body and I'm like,
Yes.
"Oh, okay." Which like I
Yes.
feel like it was more normal to have like my parents yelled and I didn't necessarily like I don't remember taking it personally. I think I had fantastic parents. Um, however, like I do feel like my kids are gentler in that aspect and they just like, like they take it very personally and you can see it like
Yes. Yep.
shift,
And I'm
like
very good at like explaining, myself or over explaining myself when things like that happen. I am very aware that how freaking weird I look when I'm or how aggressive or intimidating I am when I'm angry. So I'm angry and I'm frustrated. Please leave me alone. And or
Mhm.
I'm pissed off at you, and I go through the reasons, why um I am feeling the way I'm feeling, and I explain things to a point where they understand that I'm a person too,
Mhm.
and I'm not immune to anger issues. I'm not immune to anxiety. I'm not immune to any of the things that bothers them. Those same things bother me. And so I'm very honest and self-aware of it as it's happening, and I explain it, if I'm pissed off at them, I'll explain it to where they can understand it, to where I'm not a danger to you. I'm just mad, and
Yeah.
they really respond to it well. Like, of course, my
Has it
6-year-old doesn't
changed
because
like
he doesn't
as your
understand.
kids?
But
Yeah, I was just about to ask if it changes versus like because my daughters are just like my youngest one is 7. They're leaving kidhood, right? And mm, preteen is very different. I'm finding like I'm re
yes,
in the throes of like parenting a whole new kid who needs entirely new things. I feel very much like I did in the newborn years where I'm like totally different than what I expected. And I wonder if that will change again as they get into like full-blown teenager and then young adulthood, like how that
it kind of
ebbs and
depends on
flows
the
over the
situation.
time.
It kind of depends on the situation, what's going on. Like emergencies, it's very hard to keep your head level in the middle of an emergency, but the more you can be verbal and explain things to them, the better. Um, like, let's just say a couple of years ago, I dropped a scalding pot of water on my foot, right?
Oh,
And
no,
I was
yeah,
jumping up and down, screaming. I was in pain. But while I was going through that, I was explaining, hey, it hurts. I'm not going to die. I'm really loud because it hurts. Calm down. And I'm explaining that as I'm going
yeah,
through it. It's a very self-aware kind of thing that but I just didn't want the people around me to panic because I mean, it hurt really bad, but I knew that I wasn't going to die.
yeah.
I knew that I
Like
was
in a
going to be
moment like
okay.
that with like an actual injury, it's hard not to.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly. But then there's those moments where they get in trouble at school. Like may or may not have those issues with your girls, but let's just say they get in trouble at school, and you're just so pissed off that you're seeing red, and the more that you can verbalize to them how you're feeling, they will more likely to understand and be like, listen, I'm just pissed off at the situation, and or I'm very aggravated, I'm very anxious, the more I feel, and this may not be the case, but I feel like the more I verbalize these things to them, the more they understand what I'm going through in the moment. So if I'm overwhelming them with how loud I am, or if I'm
mhm.
scaring them with my tone, that me verbalizing how I'm feeling at that moment will kind of set them at ease and let them know, like, dad's just blowing his top. It
Yeah,
happens, and we're going to deal with this together. And it's usually we deal with it from start to finish. We don't let it fester. We don't, I don't send them to the room and deal with it later. We deal with it
mhm.
as it happens, and we deal with it as a family. And though it's rough sometimes, and it may look weird from the outside in, sometimes I mean, I can get loud enough that people might think it's borderline of abusive. But if you turn around and you ask my kids in that moment, is your dad being abusive? And they like, no, he's just yelling. That's what he does, and
Yeah,
they're very calm about it, and I try not to yell. I do. It's just sometimes, man, you get so overwhelmed, and I think this might be part like the autism and my communication issues too. But you get so overwhelmed, and you just you gotta blow your top. And I'm a very loud guy anyway, and I'm a very big person, and that's kind of the way I've been my entire life, and I don't know why. And so because I don't know, I like to verbalize those things to help them understand me and help them understand what's going on. Why is he flipping out?
Mhm.
Like, this wasn't a big deal. Well, you might not see it as a big deal, but you don't know what the hell happened here, but like you were gone today. You don't know what kind of shit that I've been dealing with all day today. And then you bring me this.
Yeah.
And it's never the kind of, they're never scared. I mean, it's not like I'm not violent or anything like that. It's just like I'm a big guy with a beard, I can be intimidating. And I don't like that people feel that way about me. So I verbalize how I'm feeling so that it kind of maybe help people feel better.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think it's like the most natural thing in the world to get overstimulated. I know it happens to me, like, especially when my kids were little and they like seemed to like need to be touching me all the time, or like the toys were always a mess, or, those little things like just kind of like creep up and add up in the day. And then, at some point you have to like deal with it somehow. And it takes a while to learn how to do that in a healthy way or set those boundaries or like teach your, like if kids want to be snuggling with you, you can't really make them not,
Right, right,
like they tend to like whine or like they are very persistent when they need things, which sometimes as an adult means like, yeah, you have to be creative about how are you going to like let off your steam because like you
right.
can't absorb everyone else's angst and then not have angst yourself.
Yes, yes. And I've learned a new phrase recently. It's called parallel play. And what that is, let's just say I'm sitting in a room together with someone. Parallel play would be I'm doing my thing and that person is doing their own thing, but we feel better because we're together. That's parallel play.
That's like how
Um,
we watch football on Sundays in our house. My partner watches football. I'm usually like typing away, working on a project.
yes, and I
Yeah.
love the parallel
So
play,
cozy.
right?
It's
But
great with kids. Yeah.
stay in your own lane, right? Like that's how I am with my kids sometimes is after I've had a long day, and one of my kids is very persistent and wanting to talk all the time. And so being patient with that all day long, there comes a time in the day where I'm done with it. I don't want to deal with it anymore. And so I love the parallel play thing, but then I get a little aggravated when somebody wants to come in my space and
Mhm.
and do my things, and I'm like, listen, leave me alone. I've had
Yeah.
enough. And and
I always
and
have to tell my kids that too. Like I need some like I'm so happy we did this together, but I need my 10 minutes now.
right,
I need
right.
an hour. I need yeah.
Well, the way I explain it to my 16-year-old is he has his bedroom that he goes and retreats to, and people don't bother him there. Well, there's not a place in this house where people will leave me alone. Even this studio. So we
Mhm.
live in less than 1,000 square feet. Our house is like 980 square feet or something like that. So my studio is a pretty big chunk of that. It's like a 10 by or 11 by 12 room. And it's used to be the garage. I converted it into a studio. And this is my quiet space. I got my cannabis tent in here, and I got a TV in here, and I got my computer and whatnot. My wife's office is underneath this table. Her computer is underneath the table. And we move that out when she works from home.
Oh,
But
that's cool.
well, I took it off the table for aesthetic reasons, but
Yeah.
other than that, it's just two screens that she hooks up to a laptop, but it takes up the entire table. And
Oh, okay.
so for aesthetic purposes for the podcast, I take that stuff and put it underneath the table, and it works out.
Mhm.
But they literally, it's an open door policy. I don't prevent them from coming in here. Like I don't, but there's not a single place in this house that I can go to get away from everyone. And so my 16-year-old, I explained it to him like, look, you're in my sanctuary, right? This is my You just come in here out of the blue and just start talking like I'm ready to listen. I'm not ready to listen. You kind of have to observe. And if there's other shit going on when you walk into the room, we're not paying attention to you. You know, I missed the first thing that you said because I've got this going on or I've got this going on. So be patient with me. Please repeat what you said because I didn't hear it and stop doing that. Stop walking into the room like you were the most important thing at that moment. And
Yeah.
it's a constant reminder. I have to remind him at least once every other day. I probably have to remind him, look, there was stuff going on in here when you walked in. Please, mellow out a little bit.
Yeah.
With my
That's
6 year
cute.
old, it's sign language. We're waiting. That's sign
Mhm.
language for waiting. And it works for him because like we have to teach him patience. And of course, all young kids are mom, 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 dad,
Mhm.
dad, mom, dad. And of course, anytime you try to talk to each other, that's what they're doing. And so we're waiting, and that's their signal or his signal to calm down. Wait a minute. When mom and dad are done talking, we will get with you. And it's a constant struggle. I think it maybe happen with all kids, but
Yeah, both my kids, I've had to teach them the same.
and that sign language trick, I learned that from what's called a parent caregiver trainer. And
Oh,
he was in a program put on by Easter Seals, and
okay.
it parent caregiver training. And what it basically was teach mom and dad the struggles and how to deal with children with autism, and
That's really cool.
right, help us be better parents. And he uh he started doing that one day with my youngest son, and I was like, what is that? Is that sign language? And he's like, yeah, that's the sign for waiting. And so he would give them that sign when he was talking to us, and he would tell, we're waiting. And then that would give him the signal to hold on a minute, and he'll talk to him when he's done talking to mom and dad. And I just thought that was so brilliant, and I do that with everybody now.
Huh, that's cool. Heard you, got you, we'll be there. Hold on.
Yes, exactly. I'm acknowledging you, but I'm busy,
Yeah.
and
My
it's
first
pretty
daughter
awesome.
had like a lot of developmental delays when she was little. She didn't speak. She was like in a special preschool because she like even when she was 3, 4, like she didn't really speak very much. We used a lot of sign language and it was really amazing like how much she could communicate by like just like tapping her fingers together or it's so hard to remember like but we had one for more, one for potty, one for it's crazy you stop using it and then you immediately forget it. But
Yes,
it's
yeah.
really amazing like even kids that don't lean on their speaking skills or develop those early that they still want to communicate. You just have to kind of like learn like how do we communicate with what your needs are or what, in a way that you understand.
That
Yeah,
is
we love
I
the sign
think that's the
language.
key for every relationship. Every relationship is communication. When you
Mhm.
learn how to communicate effectively, things just work smoother. Things People don't get aggravated. And I say this, I'm 40 and I still haven't figured out how to communicate with everyone. I'm not a
Everyone's different
perfect.
though. Yeah.
Yeah, right. Everyone is different. Now, I feel more difficulty communicating with my family than I do with like you, because I really don't. I mean, don't take this the wrong way, but you're, I really don't give a shit what you think about me, and it's not like that with my family. I do
Yeah.
care what they think about me. And so communicating, it's a very weird kind of thing. I communicating with you because I don't have to worry about how you feel about what
Hmm.
I say, because I really don't care how you feel about what I say. I don't have to
Right.
worry about that with you, but I do with my family. I do have to pay attention to like, is what I'm about to say going to hurt some feelings? Is what
Hmm.
I'm about to say going to cause somebody to be mad at me? or those things like those communication barriers is what makes life difficult for me and my family. If I could just drop those barriers and not give a shit what they thought about me, life would probably be a lot easier.
Yeah. I think it's tough though because you also have more responsibility for your family where like, you know, in someone you've just met, you just expect them to be able to handle their stuff and like, you don't have any responsibility for me either. But when it's like your wife or your kid or, someone you're close to, like if they're struggling, even if it's not your fault, like you still care or,
Right, right.
like there's some like just a deeper level of like,
Well,
I don't
maybe it's abandonment
know.
issues, right? Because like I've had abandonment issues sometimes at points in my life. I don't know, but like if I never talk to you again, Susie, it'll be okay. My life's gonna be all right. I'm gonna
We
be
never knew
just
each
fine.
other before this day. We lived,
Exactly.
we existed just fine. Yeah.
Exactly. And this has been a great conversation. So I hope to have another conversation again maybe on the podcast. Let's record another one. But at the same time, if we never speak again, it's not going to be that big of a deal for me. No offense, but it's just not going to be that big of a deal for either of us.
Right.
And
Yeah.
we're not worried about, I'm not worried about if you take something I say personally, and you're not worried about it if I take something you say personally, other than, just trying to be nice and not be a dickhead to one another.
Mhm.
But I'm more, I don't want to do anything to push my family away. I
Right.
want them to stay. I want them to care. I
Yeah.
ultimately care what they think about me because, I care. I want them to care how I feel about them,
Mhm.
and I want everybody to love everybody. I don't want everybody to be pissed off and go away. And so that may be part of it. I'm not really sure, but and a lot of times I'm just working shit out in my head as it's coming out my mouth,
Yeah.
and that's what just happened just now. So
But I think you're 100% right about that, where, a family relationships, the communication is different. And it is, one conversation affects the next conversation, and you have an entire history and you have such deeper emotions. And at least that's how I am, where it's like there are relationships that you value more. And so I don't know, there's more importance and therefore more weight on the interactions.
yeah, yeah, and it's it's one of those things where I wish I end up over explaining myself also because I don't know if what I'm saying makes sense to somebody else because it's always like I've been that way my whole life, just over explaining shit for no reason. Hoping that they understand what I'm trying to
Mhm.
say because it sounds like to me it's not coming out right. But it's one of those weird things where if I could communicate better, everything would probably be okay. And I acknowledge that. And when I'm having difficult times communicating with my family, I verbalize that. I verbalize, I don't know how to tell you what I need to tell you. So I'm just going to go away and forget about it.
Yeah.
And it usually works out.
Yeah. Yeah, I got in a fight with my partner a while ago, and I was just trying to say something like very, like I was trying to plan a trip to go see my mom, and I guess, I was just trying to figure out like I didn't expect that he would want to have time off from work to be able to come with us, but I haven't seen her in a couple years, so I was like, I really have to prioritize this now. And somehow, like, we left the conversation and he got really mad. And I was like, what happened? And he was like, you basically just told me I was like the worst partner and the worst parent. And I was like, oh my God, I had no idea I said that. I was like, there was no part of me that thought that, that meant that, that even considered that as a possibility. Like, it's like I was
My
sitting there thinking, like, I'm trying to, like, not put pressure on you to put this extra thing in your schedule. And it was a whole thing. We worked our way out of it pretty quickly, but
my
yeah.
wife and I have actually had that conversation like, like, oh, that was super hurtful. Her and then one of us would say, well, that's not what I meant. That's just how you took it,
Yeah.
and it just kind of like absolving ourselves of responsibility from what we just said by putting it on the other person. But it is true. Like it's not what we said, it's how you took it, and
Well, I
like
mean, I
I
think it goes
didn't mean
both
it that
ways.
way.
Like, I think when I like listened back to the way he said it, I was like, well, that's not what I meant, but like I can see how you, you
Right,
know.
right. I could
So,
totally see how you
yeah.
got that. Well, hey, Susie, this has been a great conversation. We've been at this almost 2 hours now.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I
Wow.
think it's been at least an hour and a half. So it's been a long one.
Gotta
It's
set
been
the
a great
listeners free
conversation.
for anyone who is still here.
It's been a great conversation, and believe it or not, I think there's a lot of people still here. But um, you know what? Let's do this again, and I'm going to
I
do a
would
little bit
love
more
that.
research. I'm going to do a little bit more research and see if there's any biological or physical reasons why. So moms are 2.5 times more likely to die during childbirth than their own mothers, and 500 times more likely to have a C-section. When I read that in your message, I was blown away. It just doesn't seem possible. And I want to get down to the why, because I feel like there's also a lot of physical stuff here at play, like the food we eat, the
Mhm.
activities that we enjoy, the things that
There's
the
plastic in
overstimulation.
everybody's placentas. Like, how is that possible? Why?
Right, right. Microplastics, the whole shit and
Mhm.
kabane. I want to get into that, but I didn't do the research for this because on purpose, because like there is, I think they call it like a loneliness epidemic right now for
Yeah.
like Gen Zers and millennials and
Mhm.
I don't know if it's that. I don't know if it's that or if we're just too individualistic. Um and while I'm a capitalist, I hate communism. I dislike socialism. That's not really what I'm talking about. Like that's more economic policy.
Right.
But here in the United States, we're very, very individualistic. And we're not, I've sent like our first couple episodes were all about where's my village? Because
Mhm.
we didn't have a village. Like I'm trying to explain to my daughter about my grandkids. Like I don't know how to be a grandpa. I have no idea because I had my grandparents were, yeah, they weren't the best, but they weren't the worst. And I love them very much, but I'm just saying like they weren't present
Right.
for
Yeah.
me, and a lot of American families are like that, and for my own kids, I didn't have that relationship with my mom and like my dad and my siblings. Like we were close, but it wasn't that kind of closeness to where we would take
Mhm.
care of each other's kids or, wash each other's dishes or anything like that. And here in the United States, we are very individualistic. But I also want to kind of dive into it and see if there's more like a physical reason
Yeah,
or an
absolutely are.
environmental reason for these things.
Mhm.
And like we can hash this out again. And like I loved
Let's
talking
do
to
it.
you.
Yeah.
And this is such a deviation from what I normally do on this podcast. And I love talking to anyone and everyone about anything. And when you reached out to me and I was reading your message, those facts just popped out at me and I was like, "What? That can't be real." And so I looked it up and it's real. And I didn't research it on purpose so we could hash it out here on the podcast, but I want to do some more research, dive into it and find out like is there any environmental reasons, physical reasons,
Mhm.
and also evolutionary reasons why this stuff may be changing. And let's get into that.
Let's do it. Let's do it. We'll talk
Awesome.
again soon. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, Susie. Hey, where can people find you? I knew you have a website, right?
Oh, yeah. Thank you for asking. It's shebirthsbravely.com.
She births bravely, shebirthsbravely.com.
Yes.
And are you on social media?
Same, yep, same handle on TikTok, Instagram, LinkedIn.
Awesome.
It's
YouTube?
yes. Um, I just started a YouTube account, but I haven't posted anything other than like the reels that become shorts. So
Right,
kind of,
right.
yeah.
Well, hey, we can get into that next time we talk too, and maybe you'll have an audience there too. But
Yeah.
other than that, like it's great to talk to you, and we'll talk to you again. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you later.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Woo!